Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle creatures of all sorts, welcome back to another episode of In the Eyes of Truth. Today we have back with us our good friend Tim Kirby, and we're going to be doing an anti-fake today.
Oh, my
And
favorite type.
they're so easy. There's so many of them. I mean, the Western propaganda
hmm
machine, it kind of just doesn't sleep, does it? Um,
no, sadly, it's eternal, and at the current present moment, it's very desperate for any little bit of information it can use to keep that war in Ukraine fueled by Western money.
yeah. So. You have in the American Village. There were two families that
Yeah,
moved in, and one of them were called the Hoffmans. Am I getting
correct. I'm the founder of that project. For those who don't know, but anyways, yeah.
so anyone who's been on the sh watching this podcast for a while, you've seen Tim, and we've discussed that
hmm
project. So you can look it up in the back,
Yeah,
some of
yeah.
the older
On the
videos.
back end, yeah.
Yeah. So, the Hoffmans are an American family that moved to Russia, and I don't remember the guy's name, the husband. So they've wife, husband,
Derek is his name.
Derek,
Derek.
couple of kids, and Derek joined the Russian army.
Correct.
Now, the Ukrainian and American psyops are reporting that he got dragged basically by his ears, his feet, his arms, and hands. You know, the way the
Yeah.
Ukrainians press gang people. Any truth in that?
Zero, because he volunteered for military service. 100% voluntary. He chose to do it. So, but again, this is one of these things where I get constantly asked by the major Western media news sources, be they NBC Universal, BBC, the Washington Post, to give all these interviews because they've become obsessed with why Westerners are coming to Russia. So, by their obsession with this topic means they want to write as many articles as they possibly can about how everyone who goes to Russia is insane or suffering or they regret it or this, that, or the other. Obviously, there are some people who've moved here and regretted it, but I think they're in the minority. If someone really wants to be here, generally they enjoy it. But there are definitely some pains in the butt along the way. That is true. However, military service is not obligatory unless you're a male citizen aged 18 to 30, from what I understand. Then you have to do your 1 year. If you come here as an old fart or you come here as a young man and become old like I did, then you're exempt from that. Although I do have the military ticket or whatever it's called, so I am eligible for the draft until I turn 50.
Um, if you've already served in your own country, do you have to serve, well, the country that you're coming from? Do you still have to sign up? I don't remember
If you're
what the
from
law
18 to
got.
30, yeah. It's not that they need you to have military experience. They need you to have Russian military experience,
Hmm.
I believe is the thing. There's one thing that it's sort of because a lot of people from the West tend to not understand that a lot of there's sort of a special invisible set of Olympics in Russia. They're the bureaucratic Olympics, and there's always a way around something. And for men, one thing that a lot of men do is if they come here and say they immigrate and they're, I don't know, 28 years old and they have permanent residency and they're like, oh no, well if I get citizenship, I'll have to go in the military. They just get permanent residency over and over and over again until they're old enough to not serve. That's generally how that thing kind of works out. However, you do absolutely have to get that military ticket thing done until you're a certain very ripe old age. And only after
Hey,
that point would
hey,
you not
hey,
have to
hey,
do it.
hey. What's this ripe old age crap? Uh,
I think because the thing is, I would be eligible for the draft in a real war till I'm 50, but I think you have to hold on to your military ticket until you're actually like getting Social Security or the Russian equivalent of
no,
that.
it's
I
still your
think.
50. It's still your 50.
Oh, you don't have to even have the thing anymore after you're 50.
And
Oh,
I
then
know
there you
this
go.
for a
So,
fact because I got
ah,
my when I finally got my citizenship, even though I'm ethnically Russian, I was born in Lugansk, so Lugansk was in
yeah,
a transitional period at that point.
yeah.
Actually, it was Lugansk was rebelling against Ukraine at that point.
hmm hmm
And I went there and I was 49 and 49 and a half. And I come there, former U.S. military, not just military, but an officer with all my documents
Oh,
translated,
yeah,
notarized. I said, I'll sign up in the reserves as an
yeah.
officer if you want me to. And the guy's eyes get about that big.
hmm
because he doesn't know what the hell to do now. So he
Yeah, yeah,
runs
yeah.
off and he gives my documents to the FSB guys, that the local FSB officer that is at each of those recruitment points, and they come up with some lame ass excuse for me to come back in like 2 months. And
Yeah, yeah.
and then and then I get a call from some of the FSB guys that I know, and they said, "Look, just leave them alone. They're panicking and they don't know what to do with you. Like they're almost
Yeah, that's
50."
one other thing about the bureaucratic Olympics in Russia is when someone is like a weird exception to the rules, that always creates problems. And that's the one thing about for the Western foreigners who have volunteered to fight in this war for whatever reason, be they as sort of a mercenary, be they as a future or current Russian citizen. I think a lot of them have encountered the sort of difficulty in sort of like getting everything organized to do that, or like if you fight on the side of Russia in this conflict, you get citizenship guaranteed. And I have heard some stories of some people who've had a lot of hurdles to get over to get the citizenship part of that done because it's not like a standard thing to do. It's not the way you normally do it, and thus it's more difficult. So that's just something people should always be aware of is in Russia, when you're a weird exception, the bureaucratic machine of whatever you're trying to do, be it business, be it immigration, be it something else, is always not going to quite know what to do with you. And a lot
Uh,
of times as a Western foreigner, you are an exception. But yeah,
Two things on that. You
yeah.
cannot fight for the Russian government on Russian soil without being a citizen. So if you volunteer for the military, the moment you finish basic training or course of the young warrior, course молодого бойца, your
Yeah.
paperwork goes in. Now, does that mean you automatically get it? No, it can get from a
There
couple months
delays
to,
happen, man.
yeah.
Yeah,
I helped a
yeah,
friend of mine who's Scottish, and he was wounded, um, heavily enough wounded in an assault, and he didn't have citizenship. He was still waiting on it, and he was getting paranoid because he had come out on a visa.
yeah.
And I put that out, and I put it out on my channel. I put it out on other
Hmm.
places.
Hmm.
The next day he had a phone call, and within another day he had a commission show up, and within 2 weeks he had citizenship. He's
Yeah.
like,
Well,
"Whoa,
I'll put
they
it
will
this way.
take it."
In Russia, the media actually fulfills its function as
Yes,
some sort of social defense when something is going wrong. If that spark, sort of like a flare, gets launched by the media, very often there's a lot of response to it. Like one guy, I believe, I'm pretty sure he was Russian, but they didn't say. Basically, he was his nationality was Uzbek, but he looked way more European
he was
than
probably
local.
Russian by
By
ethnicity.
yeah, by ethnicity. But anyways, he lost an arm and a leg, and it took him a long time to get this resolved. But it became a big like scandal in the media. Like, how dare you? He gave up his arm and his leg for the country. And eventually, I believe it got solved, from what I remember. So
Yeah,
yeah,
when people start calling their deputies and things like that, that actually has an effect. That
yeah.
does have an effect. And they're right now, because it's such a hot topic, they really don't want any scandals. So if somebody's being ignored and they don't raise their hand, bureaucracy is bureaucracy in any country. They'll just keep ignoring because the bureaucrats are like that. But if they raise their hand and start complaining, yeah.
Uh-oh. Yeah. The sort of eye of Sauron focuses on them.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but no, and also that's one thing that I think is one of the best reasons why someone might want to live in this country is because there is that factor where if you do create a lot of storm, uh, a lot of these sort of, especially middle level politicians and bureaucrats and all that, they break. You can beat them here. It is possible, and it happens every day. So.
And the members of parliament always want to show their constituents that they're actually doing something. So that's an
Yeah, yeah,
easy,
yeah. Look at
low-hanging
me. I'm
fruit for
doing
them.
stuff. I'm a great guy. Yeah. Well, because if they don't, they get fired or worse.
Yeah.
So, trust me, since so you probably know this better than I would. Since the start of special military operation, a lot of people have gotten fired for incompetence or bad behavior or bribery or this, that, or the other. And if it's bribery, they've gotten punished. So,
Yeah.
there's been quite a shakeup in the halls of power. So,
Yes, yes, there is. And like I said, once they get notified, it's a low-hanging fruit for them. Oh, we got to help this guy. Look, because then I could go, hey, we help this guy.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
fine. They get something out of it, but the fact is, somebody gets the help that they need, and that's what's important at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, yeah. It's kind of a win-win. The politician gets sort of the hype attention that I'm the best politician ever. I really care, and the person actually gets what they need. So everyone wins. Yeah.
So
So
we've established the fact that the Hoffmans weren't led at gunpoint to join the Russian army.
No, under
Uh,
no, not at all.
unlike what again the Western media seems to say, or that
Yeah.
they were so impoverished that they had no choice to sacrifice the husband to the war. Um,
Yeah, well, that's kind of ridiculous.
so
In fact, I do know that he actually had an offer to work on installing Windows for quite a hefty sum of money.
hmm,
Apparently, now that the whole migrant labor thing is being cramped down on, you can actually make some good money installing Windows. But he passed on that to do the military. So he actually had a what I would consider a good job offer. The salary was good enough where, especially if I could go back in time when I was 24 for that kind of money, I would have jumped at that. I'd be doing Windows to this day.
listen,
So
you want to hear something crazy? One of my
yeah.
friends, he won a contract to do upgrades and repairs on all the offices of VTB Bank, the VTB
Oh
Bank
boy.
in Moscow
Yeah.
province. So there's a couple hundred of them, right? One
Yeah.
of the jobs he needs filled is a painter.
Hmm.
Can't find a painter. He's now offering 150,000 rubles a month. That's about $2,000 an American,
Yeah.
and he can't find a painter. And I mean
Oh
the
yeah.
salary's doubled at this point.
Well, Stas, we have for now, unfortunately, because of the results of especially World War II in the 90s, we can either use migrant labor or we can just not have enough people. I'm on the side of not having enough people. Until
Well,
we have more babies and more people to replace them. But yeah, there's a lot of jobs that should just go unfilled. So,
I'm not against migrant. Well, no, let me phrase that. I'm not for guest arbiters, guest labor. I'm for
uh,
proper immigrants from the countries you want them to have, and you know,
yeah, yeah.
there's
Well, dude, like, sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to say
no,
that,
no, no,
like,
no, no.
in my little community where my house is, like down the street, there's one guy who on his house I saw there was an Uzbek flag and a Russian flag, and I talked to him. And basically, he has like a dual citizen, but he's an Uzbek and his wife is some like I don't know Ukrainian or something.
Mhm.
But anyways, he was like, yeah, he's like, yeah, I love Russia. I love being here. I'm very happy. I get to do business here. I just like to go to Uzbekistan every once in a while. See, those kind of people aren't a problem. Like this guy,
Right, right.
he's not here to cause terror. He's here to build a house and participate in the economy and be like everybody else. So,
Yeah.
those people aren't the problem.
No, they're not. It's the people that come in. It's the people that come in. It's the same thing as in Europe, to a smaller degree than Europe, of course, because the
Yeah.
people that come here, they come here to work, but they also come. A lot of them come with the same mentality of we're going to take over. No, you're not.
Yeah.
Uh, they don't want to assimilate. So you don't go away. If you want to assimilate, by all means, we don't mind. So, by the way, any Americans sitting around without jobs, and there's a lot of them these days.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of jobs, well-paying jobs, and
But you really can only get them in a legal way after you get your temporary residency
right,
file.
right,
Because that's the one of the problems here, and why there's a lot of Western foreigners on YouTube, is they come here on this new shared values visa, which is a project I worked on, so I'm partially to blame for that. Right about that, BBC. But anyways, people come here and then they're sort of in this dead zone where they're allowed to be here as a tourist, but they're not really supposed to be working till they get temporary residency.
yeah.
And that's the problem. You got to get that residency real quick.
The
So
residency right now is 6 to 20 weeks. That's the only little problem. I'm,
I don't think it's ever happened in 6 weeks.
yeah,
I
well,
mean,
yeah.
even if Putin himself said, "Guys, get this done," it would take more than 6 weeks. But anyways,
Yeah, yeah, that's truth. Yeah, I'm planning on me and a couple other people. We're arranging a meeting with Parliament Deputy Kuznetsov. I'm going to bring up an issue
uh,
to him. Let's make a patent system. So the people that come in, migrants that come in, or that don't require a visa. So
mhm,
this isn't just Central Asia. This include Brazil, for example, a couple other countries. They can get a patent and go to work.
mhm,
And what a patent is basically a temporary, a 1 year work visa. They pay every month. They have to renew it every month. They pay like 8,000 rubles a month. It's kind of basically paying taxes on whatever they're
yeah.
earning. And I'm going to propose the same thing. Look, we need to set something up for these people while they're waiting for their residency so they can start working.
Yeah, yeah,
because
immediately.
you're stranding people. Yeah, that
Well,
is
yeah,
an issue.
because and also because there's also a factor of historical inertia, where historical inertia is when something happened a lot in the past, so we still think it's that way, even if it isn't. And that is what happens when Western foreigners try to get a job. And all the companies here are like, "Well, you can't hire Westerners; it's impossible." Click.
Yeah,
You know, they just know that it's either really difficult or it's not possible, so they just say no because they don't want to have the headache. When actually, when you have temporary residency, it already is possible, and it's really not very bureaucratic at all. So,
right, right.
yeah.
There is a
Uh,
catch though. You don't have to pass a Russian exam to get temporary residency. That temporary
correct.
residency is for 3 years. Before your 3 years are up, not at 3 years. So about 2.5 years in, you need to do a Russian exam to get your permanent residency. But here's the catch: it's one thing if you're going to go paint a wall or put brick on brick. It's another thing if you're an engineer and you want to do professional labor and you have no language skills. That's going to be a problem. Just like if you came to America and you speak Chinese or you speak German and you don't speak a word of English, finding a job is going to be difficult. And that's
Yeah.
people need to consider that. They need to take
Well,
Russian
yeah, I
lessons.
mean, I can even say in my own personal experience, there's one project that I've been kind of involved in over the last year. I won't get into it, but it involves a few foreign people, and all of them speak Russian very, very well, and that's why they
Yeah.
do it. Because unfortunately, if you're still stuck here, and I don't know how to put it, like, I speak English like this, okay, I talk like this, then you can't do anything. No one takes you seriously. You can't do anything. You can't build a career. Basically, the more you want, or the more white collar of a lifestyle you want to
Right,
have in
right.
Russian, the more you have to have that white collar language skill. I mean, look at let's take Henry Kissinger. He had a foreign accent, but everyone took him damn serious. You
Oh, yeah.
know, so you have to be kind of on that level of speaking English, or say speaking Russian, then as a foreign language, for people to really take you serious and be able to do stuff.
Well,
So,
the exception to this is probably IT because most IT people speak English. So you'll find that
yeah,
company.
and a lot of the
Uh,
programming is kind of in English, anyways.
yeah.
Maybe.
So,
So,
so for that, but if you're, say, a mechanical engineer, dude, you need to learn Russian. You need to be able to communicate because customer requirements are very hard to figure out if you can't communicate. And Google
yeah.
Translate, yeah, that's a crutch.
Well,
That's a very
speaking
rickety
of
crutch.
the technology world, I can tell a story from when I was long ago, from when I was much younger. So, am I right?
Come on, internet. So, as we were saying,
Yes,
language
as you were
issues.
saying, coming back, got cut off by
Yes.
the internet demons. All right.
Yeah. And they are alive and well, the gremlins.
Mhm.
So, okay, so the next thing they're coming out with about the Hoffmans is that he's dead. That he was sent to the front line, used as a
Yeah.
as cannon fodder, charged off, and shot up for like the first as soon as he arrived, I guess, or
Yeah.
what have you.
There was some sort of miscommunication, I think, about what he actually signed up to do and what not. Because, you know, when you go into the military, as you might know, a lot of times there's certain preferences depending on the person, depending on their skill set. And I was told by him that what he wanted to either be like they needed drivers or like welders or something. And so I do believe, yeah, at some point he was more in where things were kind of hot and intense when that wasn't really what he was looking to do. And but as of present, or as of a few weeks ago, he's been moved to actually do, from what I understand, more the sort of welding, driving, sort of support kind of stuff that he signed up for.
So, an engineering battalion, basically.
You know better than me, man. I'm no expert on that kind of nuanced detail, but yeah.
And he's alive and well and
Yeah,
breathing
he's
and
fine.
and kicking fine.
Well, yeah, and also the chances of getting hit, you know, God forbid he does, but the chances of him getting hit that far away from the front lines is highly unlikely.
So, what we're trying to say here is, ladies and gentlemen, sit down, hold your hats in your hands, Grab onto onto your chair. You're being lied to by the Western press. I know it's shock and awe.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of one of these things where I'm always surprised by people who are kind of like Russia fans, and they'll see something about Russia in the Western press, and they don't automatically just disacknowledge it. It's not to say that like Russia is all holy and never does anything bad. That's not true. But the West uh doesn't okay. If someone gave me $1 billion and I decided to become evil Tim, I could make a Western press
Evil
that
Tim.
does
That's a cartoon
provide
character. Evil Tim.
yeah, that does like Western media that talks about Russia, but does kind of provide a realistic twist that does kind of put things in the negative. No, the Western press is just in bizarro land. Like they're not in the well, President Putin, Stas, President Putin did about 8 years ago promise that housing in Russia would become extremely affordable for everyone in Russia. Did that happen? No. Okay, so that's something that's bad, right?
Yeah.
But no, the Western media is like this is a death camp. Everyone are slaves to Putin. If you say something bad about him, you get killed. So like, there's real problems in Russia that they could maybe manipulate to make it sound bad. But then no, they choose Disneyland. Disneyland bad guy. That's their approach.
I
So
heard that Vladimir Vladimirovich he sits in one of the towers on the Kremlin and just shoots people at random because
yeah,
that's just he's
I'm sure
Doctor
there.
Evil
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
I mean that's the level of stupidity that you hear from the West. Oh, and
yeah,
Russia's collapse. Our economy is dead. We've
yeah,
got
yeah.
no
It's
chickens, no
collapsing
eggs,
any
no
day
sugar.
now. The supermarket that Tucker Carlson went to was fake. It's only for like the Kremlin insiders. They're the only people who get to go to Pechorchka.
One of the cheapest supermarket chains in Russia, by the way. This is like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not rock bottom, but it's like the lower third on prices and
Well,
sometimes, but yeah, and that's how filled that is. But
yeah.
um, the latest thing I read in the Western press, in this case, the UK press. You already know
Mhm.
where this is going, because we've already had the egg crisis, the sugar crisis. I don't know how many other crises
Oh,
we've had.
oh, there was a potato crisis, and
That's what
no,
I was gonna
the
say. The
potato
potato
crisis was the
crisis.
worst one because there were a couple of moments where during the process of like sanctions and stuff, certain products did become more expensive for kind of pure whatever. There was nothing with potatoes. There was no shortage. There was no price spike. It was literally just complete nothing. Eggs did spike in cost about what is it, a year and a half ago. They really
Mhm.
did go up and they kind of went back down a bit. But no, this potato thing was just completely 100% made up. There's nothing related to the truth. Just nothing. Just made up out of their minds.
Well, the eggs I can explain right off the bat.
Go for it.
Russia was primarily importing combicorm, the feed for animals, animal feed. It wasn't really producing its own. It's producing its own now, but that break between importing and sanctions and getting its own manufacturing set up, yeah, it corn went up in price quite a bit, and because of that,
Uh,
everything else went up in price.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now that they're doing their own feed, animal feed. Uh, Prices went right back down. Yeah, I just bought 10 eggs in Chizhik for
Yeah.
39 rubles.
39. What are the
39.
what
I'm
how is
sorry.
that
I'm
even
sorry. Not sorry.
possible?
Not sorry. Not 39. 49. My bad.
49. Still
49
that
rubles.
seems impossible, but go Chijik, the power of Chijik.
I actually put that out on my channel because there's some
Oh.
girl Yana or something like that from wherever, blonde with a really big chest and she pushed that chest out constantly in her video. Like I mean, you can't miss the chest because she's shoving it right in the video, and she's
Oh.
showing about. I mean, she went to a shop. I guess she found the most expensive eggs she could, and showing that as the standard. The most expensive everything.
Oh, well.
Oh, like, yeah. Okay, well here's a
Well,
40.
there yeah. Well, uh, hey man, again, if I were a woman, I would use that weapon to my advantage. But I'm a man and I'm ugly, so I have to be interesting and I have to make jokes. That's the downside of being a man in the media. But
Or you
yeah.
could be rich, but if we're in the media, you're not going to be rich. That's
No, I'll put it this way, I tend to make the dreams of rich men come true.
yeah.
I don't get to make them happen for me, but yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's like, "Oh, so you're doing videos and you're on different shows, so you're rich." Well, no. That's
No, no. Well. On the other hand, Stas, I have to say I am very proud of you, sir. I've seen you on a lot of really good podcasts and shows recently. You're doing a great job. Your career is exploding. That is awesome. But I do think a lot of that is probably unpaid, if not maybe all
oh
of it.
no, Well, some of it, some pay.
Some, oh,
Yeah, yeah.
some, huh?
Some services. I mean, you're a military political expert. You can get honorary, not honorary. What's it called? Gonorar and
Officially honorarium. There we go.
honorarium. That's it.
Yeah,
So some channels will pay honorarium. I do some Arab channels. They'll pay. But I mean, this is. If you're not going to live off of it unless you're a
yeah,
really, really big name, and that's
yeah,
like 10, 15 people like that, maybe 20 in the whole country.
yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
Yeah, but
Well, yeah,
everybody
that's
else.
why. Yeah, I get a lot of interview requests, and they'll be like, "How, Tim? How about you come downtown and do our TV show?" I'm like, "Honorarium." Well, we don't do that. Then I'm not going. I'm not going to
Oh
spend
yeah,
an entire workday to achieve nothing. That's why I do interviews for free, only from home, only where it's comfortable and where it's easy and it doesn't take that much time. So,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. Same thing. There's a lot of them. Oh yeah, yeah. We're doing a documentary film. We're not a news channel. Come down here and spend the entire day with us while we ask you questions. Look, okay. So wait a minute. You're
yeah,
making a product of which you're going to be making commercial sales. You're all getting paid, and the product is fully set up by the fact that you have experts that fill in and the experts
yeah,
shouldn't
yeah,
make
yeah,
any
yeah,
money.
exactly.
The expert that spends a lot of time and spend a lot of effort in his life to become an expert in something should make money, but you're going to make money off it.
Yeah. Uh, Trust me, that comes up a lot because they'll be like, but we don't have anyone else who can discuss, I don't know, what was it like, I don't know, some aspect of like American history or something, but do it in Russian, right? And they're like, well, if you can't find anyone, it's such a rarity, maybe you'd be ready to pay for it. So, because too, then they'll be like, well, find someone else for us. I ain't looking for shit. I ain't going around looking for anybody for you. That's another weird thing. Like, fulfill some sort of producer's function for us and summon other foreigners to take your place if you're not willing to do it. And it's like, no, because foreign people come to Russia don't automatically have some sort of like deep grasp of U.S. history or something, you know?
It's
So
the
I don't
same.
know. Very
You,
frustrating.
it was on the same level as when I was a military advisor in Republic of Georgia, because I was wearing a U.S. military uniform. All it was a UN mission.
Yeah.
Um, it's one of those moments, by the way, I opened my eyes just how corrupt the UN is. But that's a whole separate story. But everybody wanted me and the other American guy there to carry their visa applications to the U.S. Embassy. Like, you do realize first their State Department, we're military, we hate each other. They
Oh,
think we're idiots. We know they're idiots.
oh well.
Well, yeah, but you're in uniform with the same flag. You can carry it. I'm like, dude, all I'm gonna do is go drop it off. No, no, but you can get it through. Okay, fine,
Oh
whatever.
yeah, that's
Just
the other thing. Oh yeah, Tim. Yeah, help me get like a green card to America. I don't know how, and I don't care to know.
yeah,
I'm
I've
not
ran into
interested in
that
that.
too.
Yeah.
Help me immigrate. Why?
Yeah, well, even when even if they answered the why, there's the how. I can't. You can't. You're not deep in the State Department.
Huh. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
there's an answer. Go get an immigration lawyer.
Yeah, because I can even tell you, as someone who got their citizenship through Putin's signature, I still had to put together all the same documentation as if it would have gone through the Federal Migration Services, and they still reviewed it anyways, even though Putin signed it.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
there is no way to just like, there's this a very much, I think of this sort of like, um, sort of poor man's look at the way power works, that they look up at the castle of power and they're like, well, the king can just do anything he wants instantly because he's the king. No, not in Russia, not in America, not anywhere, man. So
Wait a minute. You're disproving the Western lie. I mean lies, truths. That Putin is an all-powerful dictator that just snaps his fingers and like everyone runs like mad. We all gather
yeah,
together
sadly,
before
and
the
actually,
big screen in the morning to see to get our orders.
well, and actually, I think you did the same thing even more so than I did because you explained. I believe it was in one of the interviews I listened to with you, where you mentioned that right now Russia's in the process of going from this special military operation, but is bureaucratically shifting over to an anti-terrorist operation. Was that you, or is that I'm mixing you up with someone else?
That was someone else. But
Damn.
I've said that
Sorry.
on well, I've talked a little bit about that on some Russian channels, but it's not something that most people are talking about. But really, that is what it's going to.
But it is important because it goes back to what you were just saying about how Putin just can't click his fingers and just be like, "We now it's the kind of war I want it to be." He's like, "No, we'll go through the process. We'll work this out. Doesn't the Duma have to approve it
Oh
to
yeah,
change
oh
the
yeah.
status of the war?" Well,
Absolutely.
see,
The Duma has to give has to vote and has to give authority. You know, one thing you could say about Putin, absolutely, he is an absolute legalist. He is
Mm.
he's got a legal education, and they whatever, and that's the other thing with the West, because the West thinks, oh yeah, well, Kherson and all those areas are under Ukrainian occupation and all that. He can just give them away. No, he can't. There's a constitution that's
Yeah, yeah,
very
yeah,
strict on that. No, he can't.
yeah.
He can't flip his fingers or flip a switch and okay, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No, no.
Because the overwhelming majority of people in Russia, including myself, voted for that very amendment to the Russian Constitution.
Yep,
We voted for it, and he's stuck with it. He can't give any of that away. The
yep,
four regions of the Donbass are part of Russia, lock, stock, and barrel in their entirety as they're drawn on the map.
yep. Absolutely. Again, yeah, like you said, people think that well, and it's done. No, no, ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah.
it doesn't work that way. And
Well, and that's probably a lot of the reason why these negotiations aren't going so well, because I think even if Trump is a good guy or a bad guy, if he comes into this that everything's organic, everything is just on the table and we can just do whatever, it's just not possible. They have to liberate the entirety of those four regions. Other stuff about like, will there be a buffer zone in the Sumy region is a little bit of a much more flexible question.
right, in Kharkiv region and all that. But you know, if they keep firing, there'll be yeah, yeah. I do get asked this. Well, I did get asked this question several times. I still do once in a while. How far do we need to go? I'm like, I don't know, Paris, London, and they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, no, well, look, let's look at it realistically. We need to go as far as we need to go till we reach a group of people that doesn't want to shoot at us.
Uh-huh.
If that's the Dnieper, that's the Dnieper. If that's Kiev, that's Kiev. It's Lvov, it's Lvov. If it's Warsaw, it's Warsaw. If it's Berlin, it's Berlin. Until you get to a point where you get to the next group of guys that go, okay, we don't want to fight. Let's just have peace. Then we have peace. But if they
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
shooting, we keep advancing because it's simple. You know, if there's a buffer zone, the people living in that buffer zone have a legal status. And most of
yeah.
those people are going to become Russian citizens. Russian citizens are now being shot at. The Russian
And they
government
have to
is
react. Yeah.
exactly is obliged to protect them. And that means you have to move the border further away. So they
Mhm.
can't shoot. Well, the people in that new territory, who do they become? They become Russian citizens. Again, they're being shot at. And so on
Yeah.
and so on and so on until we get to somebody that goes, okay, we don't want to shoot. Let's have peace. It's that easy.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know. Maybe someone you might want to actually have a talk with. He's always shy about the way he speaks English, but he speaks English very well. He'd be great to have for a foreign audience would be historian Andrei Forsov, because I
What's up?
sort of agree with him and a few other historians. You might throw Nikolai Statikov into that
Mhm.
mix. That it seems like overall the real battle is between Moscow and London.
Oh, yeah.
It seems it seems like ultimately London has been like the like enemy or the Russophobe number one. Everyone else, maybe Germany number two. Everyone else, I think, is a lot more flexible. And if it wasn't for London's manipulations and games, they probably could sort of just forget that Russia exists, especially modern Russia.
You know, what amazes me historically when we go down that road is if you look at it realistically, geographically, geopolitically, London and Moscow should be allies. They're both on the edges of Europe. They don't have
Hmm.
any interest in having a very strong Europe. And they don't share any borders. Usually people fight or have problems when they share borders. They're pretty far apart from each other, you know, trading partners, things like that. But no, London's been on this insane, we hate Russia, Russophobe number one, us, for, I don't know, last 300 years,
Hundreds of
400
years.
years?
Yeah. Well, the monument's even in Moscow because the very first foreign embassy that was put in Moscow during the time of Ivan the Fourth was a British embassy, or whatever they called the embassy back then, whatever term they used. The British were first, and that was just to start digging their dirty claws into Russian society, even back when wasn't Shakespeare alive when Ivan the Fourth was alive? Like this was a
Yeah,
while ago.
Ivan the
So
Third,
yeah,
Ivan Grozny, yeah.
yeah.
And here's an interesting thing. The building, which is the embassy, that was the British embassy,
Yeah.
was the house of the Romanov family when they were just nobility. They weren't,
Mm.
and the building's still there. And by the way, it's a
Yeah, it
museum
is.
and you can take a tour. It's a pretty cool tour.
Yeah, it's also amazing. Yeah, after like World War One, World War Two, Russian Revolution, all this other stuff, the building is still there and still looks basically the way it did originally, which is crazy for something being in downtown Moscow.
And,
There's been a lot of changes there.
oh yeah, and the building's like 500, 600. Well, it's 1500s, so it's well over
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
500 years old.
Yeah.
So yeah, it looks great. It's a good museum. It's right beside a
Mm.
big park. So yeah,
Oh.
I've been to there with one of my kids went on a school tour, and I went as chaperoning him along. I was like, man, this is pretty cool. It's
Mhm.
well worth of I guess most foreigners don't go there because it's off the beaten. Well, it's not even off the beaten
Yeah, it's
path.
kind of not
You
your
can see
like
the
top
Kremlin,
priority.
right? You can see the Kremlin from it. I mean, it's not that far away from it, but it's a cool museum.
That's kind of one of those things where you have to be like a geopolitics fan to really like be into that kind of thing. So who knows? You have to have read like the works of Brzezinski or whatever to get excited about all that. But yeah.
But it also torpedoes because there's lots of these buildings. They're not whole blocks of them anymore, but they're
Mhm.
scattered here and there. They're not made out of bricks because they weren't using bricks at that point. They were using stone blocks. So they're
Mhm.
stone buildings made from stone blocks. But you're told till like the times of Peter the Great, all of Moscow was wooden and just kept burning because the Russians are too stupid to build out of anything else. And you have all these buildings all over there that are still surviving, made out of stone blocks. They're five, six
Yeah.
hundred years old, while London was still burning all the time. Um, and
Yeah. Well, it's again, it's one of those sort of like perceptions and propaganda kind of things. It's like when there's a fire in Chicago that was famous, or the multiple fires in London, that just sort of happened. There's a fire in Moscow, that's because everyone lived in huts like animals. It's just that kind of like racist, bizarre logic, you know? One thing I had to explain to someone recently is it's what drives me again nuts about like the woke crew is okay, right now we're speaking English, which is a Germanic language. The Romans fought against the German tribes a lot. Heavy emphasis on
yeah.
the word tribes. The Romans saw the world in three races. They had sort of a middle race and a upper race. I think they're referred to as yellow because they were blonde haired, and a black race being black people. And they were like, well, them black people down, they're Italian. Those are black people down there. It's too hot. They can't think. But up in north, it's too cold. They can't have a civilization. So like the Romans thought that just everyone who was blonde or Slavic or Germanic was just some sort of like Untermensch by default, right? Those are all the sort of like spiritual ancestors of people who speak English. We're all treated that way at some point in their history. And then this woke thing of like white supremacy, it's all BS. It's just all BS. As soon as you start to really understand like history, everyone hates each other. A lot of hatred, a lot of this like right now we're top dogs, so we're gonna look down on everyone else, the Romans.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh God, it's just absolutely maddening. People really need to open their eyes and see that there's a lot of similarity between people, or read that book by Thomas Sowell. I forget what Sowell, excuse me, about like the geopolitics of Africa, and he explained how the geography of Africa is like the worst geopolitical situation for human development. And he's like, don't be basically the way Africa has kind of always seemed to be behind is because literally it has terrible geography,
Yeah.
dismal. But guess what? The Chinese are building a lot of roads and trains there, and roads and trains and technology can start to trump um, geography. It allows us to overcome it. So we'll see how things play out in Africa now that they're starting to become connected, whereas they used to be divided by rivers that went nowhere and provided no means of trade or communication or anything else. So,
Listen, I just got back from Georgia. The Chinese are building a gigantic, and it's like 80, 90% complete, a gigantic bridge interstate that goes through all these valleys. Before, I mean, you had this two-lane road that goes down the valleys, up the valleys, because Georgia's particularly Western Georgia, is mountainous till you get toward the coast. So you
yeah,
up
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
down, all these screwy roads, old tunnels here and there. No, the Chinese have built this. And when it goes to the valleys, it's on bridges, it's elevated
Mhm.
tunnels. 6-lane roads, right? I
Yeah, baby.
mean, super high technology for road construction. They're building it to as because Georgia with Russia is all part of their road and belt initiative that the U.S.
Yeah.
is trying to sabotage at every single spec because it has nothing to compete with. And once everything's going by rail and road, the U.S. Navy ain't got anything to meddle with. So,
Mhm.
but this is it's just an incredible project. You're going there, and the liberals in Georgia that are against the government, they're oh, there's too many Chinese working there, but there's Georgian working there too, and lots of Georgians working there. So it's
Yeah.
jobs, and it's a super project that just is going to revolutionize their transportation network.
Oh yeah, and I am absolutely sure that all those people who say there's too many Chinese people working there, they're thrilled to have the Apple Store and McDonald's and whatever the hell else. It's the
Yeah,
same thing. It's the classic thing about how, oh, the Russian language is an evil influence on our Georgian culture. Got to teach English in school. Every child must learn English, but we got to get rid of the Russian. Like that stuff. It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
flagrantly obvious if people just take a few seconds to stop and think about it.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely, absolutely. The Georgians luckily chose differently, but the Armenians seem to have chosen wrongly. But yeah, it's interesting to watch. I mean, the Western propaganda, if nothing else, it is insidious. It
well,
is.
here, let me ask you then the vibe in Georgia, okay? What is it? Because on the one hand, they did sort of they have some angst with the Russians because Saakashvili started his campaign of cleansing and Russia stepped in and Georgia lost a lot of territory, okay? So I can see how they might be salty at Russia. But on the other hand, it's kind of like they seem very disenfranchised with Europe. So where are these people in Georgia at? Like, what are they thinking the future is? Like complete and total independence as this little tiny Georgia, or what?
You know, it's very complicated. First of all, the ethnic cleansing started under Gamsa. Gamsa was
Hmm.
this liberal poet. He was the first president of independent Georgia. And as the first president of independent Georgia, the first thing he did was ban all political parties and elections and became a dictator. Um,
Oh, classic. Yeah.
yeah, classic, classic liberal approach. Oh, you elected me. Cool. Now I'm going to shoot all of you. Uh, so then he started a genocidal campaign against the South Ossetians and the Abkhazians, and he was fighting a civil war against a couple other Georgian factions. Yeah, I gotta give it to this guy. But he got his triumph when he got captured, led out into an alley and shot. So
Hmm.
that was the end of Gamsakhoria. So, but at that point, South Ossetia and Abkhazia effectively became independent. They weren't recognized by Russia and others until Saakashvili. Well, the interesting thing, because Ajaria was where Batumi is, was also independent. Ajaria came back in as an autonomous republic or autonomous
Hmm.
province in Georgia. So in 2008, at the initiative of Russia, Russia proposed to Georgia, to Saakashvili, the 3+1 talks, which is Georgia, Abkhazia, South Ossetia plus Russia. And the point of talks was to use the model of Ajaria and create a confederation where these two republics go back into Georgia. And by the way,
Yeah.
Saakashvili said, yeah, okay, that's cool. And then, within a couple of days, Condoleezza Rice comes galloping along. Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
that ain't happening.
dude,
That ain't
what are you
happening. Oh
thinking?
no.
Hell no. Peace
No.
break out. Friggin' no way in hell that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And then we get the 2008 war starting like almost instantly after she leaves. So she
Yeah.
gave him the marching orders, and they get his ass kicked.
Just like
Uh,
Boris Johnson. She
yeah,
she set the tempo. Yeah.
yeah. The Wicked Witch came galloping along on her nightmare horse there. Ah,
Yeah.
peace! I hear peace. We
But
can't have
again,
peace.
so anyways, what do the Georgians want now? Is their
Oh.
future European in a weird way? Is it with Russia? Is it true super independence or completely a unique, isolated phenomenon? Where are they going with this? What do they
Well,
want?
in the Georgian Constitution is written that Georgia is going to join NATO and join the EU. Let's begin with
Uh-oh.
that. However, the Georgian wished, or the Georgian Dream Party, and I know quite a few of those. I know several of those guys in the high up. One of them was a very good friend of mine. What they said was, we're going to join the EU with our mountain Georgian pride and traditions, which is impossible because Georgia,
Yeah,
nobody
the EU's
joins
going to
the.
say, excuse me, we've got some migrants for you. Your Georgian pride is nothing compared to boatloads of weirdos.
Yeah, and by the way, you're gonna have Pride Parade. You want Pride? Yeah, we'll give
Oh
you
yeah, oh, yeah, oh,
Pride.
you'll have a different
Yeah,
form of pride. Gotcha.
yeah, you're gonna have all the
Yeah,
pride you can ever imagine. So what the Georgians did, what Georgian Dream did, first of all, is very quietly they removed all the American officers out of the military and police. What I mean by American officers is the people who are trained in the U.S. Because if you
hmm
look at all these color revolutions, all the association with the U.S. military, they'll train some guys, bring them over, but they're being brainwashed or they're being bought.
yeah,
And when they come over, they come back. They're really whom are they serving? Because they've got two masters at that point. And the Georgians got rid of these guys. Why does Georgian Maidan didn't work or color revolution? Because you got they all run on a set menu of items. You fill step one, then you go to step two, you go to step three. Well, they got the
yeah,
step one, step two. They got the feel the people um, in the streets. A lot of them are paid for. A lot of them were foreigners. And I've seen that myself with my own eyes. That there were foreigners, Italians, French. I'm like, what the? I told Potter, your biggest mistake on these demonstrations is you should have set up booths and cordon it off and check people's IDs. Georgians have a right to demonstrate against your government. Some foreigner that's in your country has absolutely no right to demonstrate against the government he's
yeah,
a guest of.
yeah.
But okay, so we got to that point, and they're shooting fireworks in the streets. We saw all that. Well, the next step to make this a successful revolution is a large chunk of the police and the military have to come across the aisle and join the revolution.
hmm
Well, the Georgians replaced all those American trained guys and British trained guys with traditional Orthodox Christians. And what does this revolution have to offer? Attack on the church, attack on the family, attack, 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 attack.
Yeah, yeah,
Everything
yeah.
your traditions are
On
scum.
everything Georgian. Yeah,
Yeah, and we're just
ultimately.
going to get rid of it all, and we're going to be a one LGBTR XYWXYZ family of Euro biomass, and
hmm
they had no desire for that. So that it fell apart on that. But the bureaucrats, funny enough, the bureaucrats that were liberal, they all went to the parade, and they no, no oh the parade, the demonstrations. So they identified themselves, and now they're all being fired in
Yeah,
mass. Oh, thank you.
yeah.
We saw where you were. Bye bye. We don't need you anymore. So they allowed themselves to be purged. They took that risk. So the government is now, I mean, it's independent, and they're moving all the laws that they took, for example, the laws on transparency. You'd think you'd want transparency, right? Europe, well, like transparency. Well, when there's 10,000 NGOs working no, no, that's not a misquote. There's over 10,000 NGOs. They're
hmm
being steadily shut down. I mean, there were an NGO for like every 200 people in Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia is kind of a small country. That is a lot. Yeah.
Okay, I mistake. Almost 400 people. Okay, so there's one
Yeah.
NGO for almost 400. NGO is actually a sector of the economy. It is, I mean, it's that prevalent, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so transparency laws, that's why they were against it, because once you see where the money's really going or from whom it's going, you kind of
yeah.
figure out you're not sovereign until you can do that. So they're in a mix because the older generations, a lot of them are like, look, either they like Russia and they want to be close to Russia, or they come to, well, we've got to deal with Russia because Russia's there. Or some of them got to the point where, we can screw around and go with these guys and these guys because the Russians won't drop us because we're Orthodox and the Russians are Orthodox. And the Turks we're kind of afraid of the Turks, but we can play with them some because the Turks try to take us over, and Erdogan's already
Oh,
made threats
like they
about
could
that.
sort of negotiate for the best deal because Russia will tolerate them if they want to come back anyways.
Yeah, because Russia will protect us if the Turks decide to annex us. And
Ah, got it.
Erdogan was in Riza, which is a city near Trabzon in northeastern Turkey, about a year ago, and he was doing a speech. He's like, I'm here in Riza, and I'm looking over Batumi, and it's all Turkish. At
Uh-oh.
which point, yeah, you gotta go, knowing the Turks for what they can do or they've done before. Yeah, that should set alarm bells off. And
Yeah.
There's a large Turkish minority in Azaria. So yeah, it's that guy's basically threatening you that he's gonna annex a chunk of you, if not all of you.
Hmm.
So it's a mix. It's a now the young generation. Russia finally rediscovered soft power.
Hmm.
Took a while. So now there's a lot of, Georgians can come and stay in Russia as long as they want. There's no visa restrictions. There's no limits, time limits on how long they can stay. And now there's a bunch of university positions for Georgians that are paid for by the
Hmm.
government, by the Russian government. So
I
they can
see.
come study because that's a soft power application.
Well,
That's
now it's kind of like in some ways America during the Cold War is they were able to bring people from all over the world and show the wealth of America. And I'm sure a lot of people who come now, even people who are the descendants of those who live in the former USSR, they come to Moscow and they can sort of smell the rubles
and
for
not
how
just
wealthy it is
Moscow.
here now.
Most Russian cities are growing hand over fist. I mean,
Yeah.
Moscow's just the center of it, but of course,
Kazan
political
and
finance.
Grozny are very pretty now.
Yeah,
Very, very pretty. And very, very big. Yeah.
because literally the youth they're listening to the Western media and they're being told, we're sitting around with a bottle of vodka, our pet bear, our assault rifle, and our
Yeah.
lopties on our feet, and a balalaika,
Yeah.
bah, 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 bah. And we're living in huts. I mean, they literally
Mhm.
believe this crap.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
they get to Russia and they look around the first time, they go,
Yeah. There's no
the
huts.
dissonance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's a mixed crowd. You can't really put your finger on one thing. It's in flux. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see.
I think yeah, the mentality of the former Soviet Union is now probably I can only assume because I haven't really spent much time out of Russia in a while, but I can kind of assume that there must be a sort of moment like, ha, Russia really isn't like that poor or something. Because in every former Soviet socialist republic, the line from the 90s was, we're poor because the Russians made us poor. If we would have been independent, things would have been different. And now all of a sudden, you can sort of see that that is,
Hmm.
not the case. All of a sudden, they've been gone and Russia got really, really wealthy. And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
something's not adding up here. Maybe this propaganda line's going to fall apart. Who knows? So.
Because they're all fed this line that we're feeding Moscow. And then when they got independence, they figured out, well, no, actually, Moscow's feeding you. So,
Yeah,
whoops.
one of the problems of the Soviet Union was the generosity of Moscow, and not just them, but especially, uh, you know, I'll put it this way: I think the Marshall Plan was a lot cheaper than what the Soviets had to do with blown up Eastern Europe as well.
Yeah.
Fixing Poland after World War II, quite a pretty penny.
And I've seen the document that Stalin signed. 1946, he sent 120,000 head of cattle to
Yeah.
Poland and helped pay for Polish rebuilding. Meanwhile, there's still hunger in the Soviet Union after the war. That
Hmm.
cattle
Was needed, yeah,
it
to
was
yeah.
needed, but he sent it to Poland to help rebuild the herds that the Germans had either destroyed or driven west with them when they were retreating. So not anybody said thank you, obviously, not in the long term, anyways.
No, no. Well, that's probably because Russia never made a movie about it. Like, they could have made like a melodrama. Stalin's great gift to the Poles. There's only like
They
a couple Soviet or sort of like communist era TV shows that Polish people still like. There's like the four tank operators and a dog was still popular. There's this one weird show which had like a guy with a black car, but he painted the car with flames on it, even though it was really an old show. I can't remember the names of any of this stuff. I used to know,
Knight
but
Rider.
no, 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 no. If only they would have had a sort of communist Knight Rider in socialist Poland, but no. But anyways, I'll put it this way. I even knew one Bulgarian guy, and he said, when I came to Russia, I realized, why did you give us all of your like garbage content? I was like, well, us being like people in Russia. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, when you watch like Soviet movies and stuff, the Russian ones, they were like kind of good and fun. All we got was like terrible propaganda. So apparently, the Russians, whatever he got in Bulgaria was very an anti-advertisement, very kind of North Korean TV. Just beat that drum every day. So
Yeah, some of those Eastern European, well, Romania was one of those, were really, really odd on some of the things they did.
Yeah.
They made the Soviet Union was very rational compared to some of these others. So well, listen, are out of time. We'll probably get
Oh,
switched off.
okay. All right.
Tim,
Okay. Well, it
thank
was
you
good
very
talking to you.
much. Same. I hope everybody enjoyed it. If you have questions for Tim, by all means, put them in the comments. He will see them,
Oh,
and he
yes,
will
I
write
will.
you essays to answer them in
Oh,
detail.
yes. Video
Multi.
essays.
Yes, yes. All right. Thank you, everybody. God
See ya.
bless.
All right. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right.